Please join me, Brad Peters from Birst, Mike Saliter from Qlik, Stephanie Buscemi from Salesforce, and then Jewett from Tableau.
So I'm Brad Peters, Chairman and founder of Birst. Currently, we serve about 10,000 organizations worldwide. Right now, we're really proud to have been leading the charge of integrating not just enterprise data that's on-prem, but also data in the cloud in our unique two-tier data model. We are a leader in cloud-based business intelligence and analytics. You can think of us as a solution that's focused on the generalized problem of how do we create and manage schematically complex data and get enterprise data to as many business users in an organization as possible. Our focus is really about building analytical applications, rich, deep, powerful analytical applications, ones that pull data from lots of different sources that bridges the gap, we think, between both cloud and on-prem. Classic case for Birst, and I don't know how much time we have here. I think it's 1 minute and 17 left. So we got a great customer in the Bay Area called Citrix. They're not just a software company, they're also a manufacturing company. Classic analytical application problem, not data from one source, not a silo, but they really need to look across a business process of how they manage inventory from what the sales reps think they're going to sell to what actually has been sold, to what's been ordered, to what's been shipped, to what's on the trucks, to what's in the manufacturing line, to be able to optimize their supply chain processes. So when we think about things, we don't think about things in one slice of data at a time. We're thinking across an entire business process and how we analyze the rates of change of data across those different business processes and create a seamless flow of measurement for that business process. With Citrix, we've been able to dramatically increase their inventory turns, give them dramatically better visibility into how their supply chain functions, and allow them to compete very effectively in the market for networking edge equipment. And actually, their market share has been rising considerably, and the folks that we're working with are now considerably more advanced in their careers. So that's my
I think you're transferring it to Mike. Right, we did it alphabetically.
Thanks, we're passing the clicker, too.
Thanks, Brad. Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Saliter. I lead up the industry group for Qlik, responsible for our solutions, both from an industry perspective and from a functional perspective. And just a little bit about Qlik, if you're not familiar. Qlik is a global leader in the data analytics, data discovery, and data visualization space. Many of you know us as QlikView. It's one of our marquee products, but we've expanded our product portfolio over the last few years to include a diverse set of capabilities. What stands out with Qlik is we're well-established, 34,000 global customers, 1,700 plus partners around the world. And our partner ecosystem is key to our go-to-market. So we do over half of our business through partners, many of which are in this room. We're publicly traded, and as I mentioned, we've got a portfolio of products, QlikView being kind of our flagship product that's been in the market for a while, really focused on analytical applications, guided analytics. We've recently released a new product called Qlik Sense. It's focused in the self-service visualization space, really open architecture, extensible, downloadable for free. And we've recently expanded that offering to include a cloud-based extension to Qlik Sense, as well as an acquisition we made around reporting and collaboration. So an evolving product portfolio to take advantage of this huge market opportunity. As Brad shared an example with you, I'll just give you a quick use case. This happens to come from a large telco provider named Bix. They're based out of Europe. They're one of the leading global providers. And they've integrated both Qlik, Informatica, and Teradata. Their challenge was they had over a terabyte of new call detail records coming in on a daily basis. And they needed to make sense of this all. And it wasn't just for their internal folks. They wanted to provide this out to their customers as a service. So they took advantage of Informatica from a data quality, data integration, data wrangling perspective. They loaded that into Teradata from a warehouse perspective, and they deployed Qlik as the end user interface for analytics, for discovery, and to provide a self-service capability to their customers. So unlike a lot of the use cases that we often hear about in BI, they're departmental, they're small in one group, this is pushing analytics out to their customer base and in turn getting a higher customer satisfaction while also improving operational and IT efficiencies. That's just one example out of the 34,000, but it's a joint public case study.
Excellent, thank you. And if you don't mind transferring it to Stephanie.
Can you take it back for me one? Push. One slide back. Thanks. So I think you all heard from Vijay, but there's a couple key points I kind of want to hit on here. We are about 120 days since GA of the Analytics Cloud Wave. We've had tremendous momentum out in the market. I think all of us could argue that Salesforce was long overdue on giving a viable analytics solution to its customers. We have a huge pent-up demand, I would say. By the time I arrived, my background is in analytics and BI, and there was a pull from the install base. And so when we say everyone, I think we all in this room say everyone. But our first landing place is right in our install base. And we're really seeing tremendous momentum going to our Sales Cloud and Service Cloud customers who really want to look not only across multiple orgs and get pipeline opportunity, but as Vijay said, being able to bring in other data sources with that easily and look at that all together. So the innovation with EdgeSpring that we've built a mobile app on top of with Salesforce really allows to bring in any kind of data, and that's why we went with the platform approach. It's really good at bringing in and analyzing log data, fast exploration. We also bet heavily on mobile, and it was somewhat controversial. Any SAPers in the room, I apologize now. I spent 6.5 years there with SAP Business Objects, and my joke is I'm repenting for my sins of building in an 8.5 by 11 and then forcing it for the phone factor. And so this is natively mobile built. And that's really thinking about our customers. That's sales, service, and marketing. And you think about those front office functions and where they are. Mobile matters. I love being now at a cloud company and being able to look on a daily basis at product usage and actually see that the hypothesis is paying off. Mobile adoption, in addition to our desktop, but mobile is driving huge on that. Vijay said it too, the platform, we'll continue to build on that. We're going to be delivering our sales, service, and marketing analytic applications this calendar year, foreshadowing for Dreamforce. And we also are out of the gate with 47 partners, and we know that we're not the content industry line of business experts outside of our core CRM functions. And so we're trying to make Wave that platform that they can all build. And our aspiration here is really to build the largest analytic app exchange out there like we've done with our app exchange. The story here is, Vijay touched on a couple, but GE Capital in particular, I'll just add a few more points of color to what he already said. They were somebody that not only had multiple Salesforce orgs, but they had a large Siebel database. They had stood up Teradata. They had many analytic tools. So if you think about it, we're going into our install base, even large enterprises that are saying we have 6+ BI analytic tools. Why do we not need to buy a Wave again? And the business user really sees Wave and the value that it's the argument of simpler versus smarter. And I want to be careful how I say that. Doug Henshin really did an interesting article recently in Information Week about this. And Wave is extremely smart, but there's something to be said for simpler, which is getting right into the hand of a salesperson. This is not, we're a coexist. All my friends here on stage, this is about getting to those people, the salespeople, being able to give them visibility into their pipeline, being able to get a 360-degree view of their customer, and that's exactly what GE did here, GE Cap did. It's financial services. The data across region, highly regulated in terms of how you can look at that data, and the ability for them to give their global account managers that 360-degree view of the data while being compliant is what enabled us to so quickly bring Wave to them.
Excellent. So if you don't mind transferring it into Dan, who will take us through Tableau.
Great. Thanks. So hi, everyone. Thanks for spending some time with us today. My name is Dan Jewett from Tableau. Tableau's mission is pretty straightforward and simple. We just help people see and understand their data. We don't particularly care where your data comes from or what kind of data. If it's CRM data, that's great. If it's weblog data or Internet of Things data, that's great. If it's just 25 rows of data you typed into an Excel spreadsheet, that's great too. Our fundamental premise is people, the individuals side of people, have this thirst and this desire to ask and answer questions. And data is the vehicle that they want to search for that understanding from. And we're a set of products that help people do that. Products I have listed at the bottom of the side, Tableau Desktop. Think of that as like Photoshop for your data or something. It's a personal productivity tool you install on your computer, and you just dive in and explore what your data has to share with you. We have server components. Tableau Server is an on-premise server. Tableau Online is our cloud equivalent of that. So if you like to deploy on-premise, that's great. If you like to use cloud solutions, that's great as well. And then we have a unique twist in the market as well, which is Tableau Public, which is a free offering that we provide back to kind of the citizens of the world. So anybody on the planet who has data that they want to share publicly with anyone else can drop that data into Tableau Public and do some analytics with it. So folks like who would never consider themselves analysts or data workers, folks like journalists, folks like people wearing their parent hat and trying to do analytics about their kids' school board meetings and enrollment at their kids' schools and Little League stats and all that kind of stuff is data analytics. But nobody ever thinks about it as data analytics because that would be scary. So Tableau Public's a vehicle for them. It's all about just helping people ask and answer those questions. So a quick case study. One of the companies that we work with is Rally Software. So if you use Rally Software, they're folks who help software companies adopt and implement the Agile process, right? So it's kind of neat that they have a cloud solution that helps you work and build your software faster. Well, Rally's a big user of Tableau. They use Tableau in a couple ways, and we see this as a pretty common pattern at a lot of our customers. Multiple groups, multiple different divisions inside the company use it. Engineering, they use it to collect every transaction that happens on their website. Hundreds of millions of requests per day comes in. The engineering organization trolls through all that information, logs, and so web logs and application logs and things like that, tracking and monitoring and managing what's going on with their cloud application that they're managing. They use Tableau to help them diagnose and understand problems, right? One of the fellows earlier said you manage what you measure, or you measure what you manage, however whichever twist you want to put on that phrase. That's what their engineering organization does at Rally. The support organization uses Tableau. Folks call up support and say, hey, the application felt a little sluggish today. Was there something going on? Support fires up Tableau and starts looking at logs. Was it the application as a whole? Was it the system? Was it that particular user's subset of the SaaS tenant that was performing differently or unexpected? So they're doing this iterative ad hoc discovery of support cases based on customers calling in. And then sales uses it. And at Rally, they're big Salesforce users, like probably most of us in the room. Tableau is a big Salesforce customer as well. We end up doing, just like Rally does, we embed Tableau Analytics into the Salesforce.com platform, and then we're looking at things like customer patterns, health index, customer conversations to have, what's the transaction, give that salesperson a view of the activity that's happening. So this case is Rally, 3 different use cases, 1 product tool they have there, 3 different sets of data that are coming in. The common theme is it's just regular people in these roles trying to understand what the data is telling them.
Excellent. So thank you, everybody, for the introduction. And just through the introduction, you already kind of did a good entry to my first question. And I would love all of you to kind of address it. We're living in a time of a lot of change. And terms like the nexus of forces have been thrown around. And even in your short introduction, you mentioned cloud. You mentioned data and information. You can put big data in the same. And mobile was definitely mentioned as well. From all of these big changes, what do you think is affecting your users most, and how does it affect you as or your products? Dan, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start with that. One of the things that has really changed, right, and we're talking about analytics, right, and if you had a panel like this a few years ago, it would be a whole different set of company names that would be sitting here, right? It's kind of been turned over. And the premise that's happened in this turnover is the centering on the individual, right? The individual has expectations now based on what's going on in their life that I don't need to ask somebody else to do it. I don't have to move my data into a particular schema, or I don't have to ask some guy to do the report for me. The expectations people have, right? I mean, when was the last time somebody in the room went into a bank, right, and actually talked to a teller? Right? That's kind of the old way of doing it. Your expectation now is you use an ATM machine if you need cash, and you pretty much do everything else on your device. You just do it yourself, right? And people's expectations are different now, so they want to understand and ask and answer those questions themselves. And it's starting to bridge into the next level where they're saying, I don't just want to ask and answer questions from known data sources because my world has 50 or 75, or we've heard, one of the guys today said he had 168 SaaS applications that their company worked with. That's not even counting the on-premise applications. Data is everywhere. I want to do it myself and ask and answer those questions. So it's the expectations that the end user has is the biggest driver that we've seen drive our business and the biggest driver that we have on our product thinking about what we need to do with the products.
I think Dan makes a good point on that, which is, yes, there's that consumer. I mean, I think in the ThoughtSpot presentation, VJ hit on it. I mean, we're all saying, I don't have to define what type of information I want when I do a Google search. It's all right there at my fingertips, and I want that same consumer experience in my work, and there's that dichotomy that exists there. I also think, though, as vendors, we have, and for the enterprise, we have responsibility to kind of help the business user make that leap into it. I mean, when we think about it, it's sort of, when we've taken such a strong feeling about mobile here, a lot of people have said, well, they're not asking for that. And it's like, yeah, when I had my flip phone, I don't think I asked either that it had email in it. And so, VJ showed the dashboard builder and building that on the phone. And I think I had a few people when we were doing that saying, well, is anyone going to use that? And now we're pushing it out to the sales team. We're probably our best use case out there. And it's pretty amazing when you put it at their fingertips. They are using it, and then the number of asks back into the analyst and elsewhere is reducing as a result.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's all about access. But one of the big themes, if you think about where BI was 5 years ago, it was all about lockdown. And it was IT kind of protecting these business processes because they didn't want things like the iPad entering into the enterprise. But now, as Dan pointed out, the expectation is people want free access to information. They want to be able to do this themselves. So there's been definitely a softening of some of those rules, but there still needs to be an element of governance that's in place. Otherwise, you end up with the same problem that you had with Excel spreadsheets, whereas you hear about Excel anarchy or Excel hell, where people end up with conflicting numbers or conflicting versions of the truth. So it's really finding that balance between governance as well as the freedom to explore and provide self-service.
I agree. There's the challenge with analytics is everyone wants to pitch that it's simple and it's one button and you press a button and all of a sudden your answers get answers, and the demos look phenomenal when people show them. But the reality is data never comes out of applications, and most of the data that we deal with in enterprises isn't just organized in such a way that mere mortals can sort of go in and sort through it. There's a lot of what we call schematic complexity. Data is out there, and it's the organization of data itself which is difficult to sort through. If everything in your entire organization was in one table, life would be pretty simple, but it's not. SAP's got 30,000 tables. Salesforce is, 5, 10,000, whatever it is. It's huge. And so the question is, there's access to it, but there's also how do you scale up the access to the diversity of information that's out there. And I think this has only gotten much worse over the last couple of years as the pendulum has swung from, I think, suite vendors now to kind of a best-of-breed approach to a lot of different things. And now we're seeing an explosion of lots of new software vendors that are out there, and the data's only become even that much more complex. So what's been driving us in the marketplace is this notion that the enterprise and IT folks are just trying to keep up with storing the data. And this beautiful thing about data lakes is just store it and forget about how you actually use it. That's just a wonderfully liberating concept for a data person, because you don't actually have to think about how the end users are going to consume that information. The reality is, unless you think about that, the end users aren't going to get much out of it. And it isn't as simple as doing a sum across a bunch of stuff. It's bringing this stuff together. So what we've been focusing on is building, like I mentioned earlier, this two-tier approach where the enterprise can focus on bringing data together from a raw data perspective, but then creating more user-oriented application-specific data that's linked to that enterprise data together in one cohesive view. You've got legacy vendors that have taken an approach of how do we preconceive these entire use cases soup to nuts, and then we've got other approaches which are more user-driven, and our perspective on the world is that there's actually room for both of these things in an enterprise. And users need autonomy, but they don't generally know where to go. And the enterprise generally understands the data better, but they don't understand how the end users want to consume it. And if you can bring the two of those together, and that's really the crux that we see driving, is this intense desire by organizations to consume data. They now have this intuition that they should be able to, and it should look pretty and simple. But every time they try to go out and do it, you build the one graph and it gets great, but by the time you're 10 or 15, it falls apart. There's got to be a better way to organize it, and that's really what we're set about to deal with.
So I think even as we started kind of touching the forces and the changes, you already raised the user. And I want to try and ask you even a very straightforward question, which is who do you see as your primary user? And even go one level deeper than just the business user, or just try to say who are you targeting as your current user? And if you have any view about the user that you want to target 2 years from now.
I think we'll all say that everyone's a user, I mean, in reality. But the reality is, in most organizations, I think someone shared it earlier, the statistic that 24% of an average enterprise adopts analytical software. Now, I like to think that the folks in the companies on this panel, that number is much higher, and it's the legacy traditional BI stacks that have a much lower adoption rate. But the reality is there's still a huge untapped market, and an untapped, it's the young professionals coming in, it's people, as Dan said, the little league coaches and the people that are doing this in our day-to-day lives. So I think we've gotten a lot better, and we've gotten it broader outside of just the core BI teams and the business analysts, but there's still a broader perimeter we can keep going towards. So I'd like to see where that 24% is the 24% of people that aren't using analytics versus the 24% today that are.
Just building on what you were saying, I believe that, to your point, Brad, there's the analytical and non-analytical. I certainly don't think everyone out there is an analyst at heart, nor desires to be. But I do think back to the simpler versus smarter. A key focus for us is being able to push more out to that business user. And when you ask who that business user is, an obvious starting place for Salesforce is who is that sales manager? Who is that RVP, that regional vice president? Who is this account rep when they're walking into the account? Do they have what the last things they sold into that account? Do they know from marketing what campaigns went out? Do they know what they can cross-sell and upsell? So for us, that's a starting place with our beachhead of who our install base is. But the reason we didn't go an analytic application first concept, and we went with the platform, is to give that flexibility to grow, to be able to bring partners in, and to be able to have analytic applications that extend to other lines of business and industry-specific use cases.
Got you. So my next question is, it seems like there is a very, very strong move for the customer base to adopt more and more cloud applications. Does that change their customer perspective into analytics? Does this change the requirements? I know that some of you have touched that when they talk about the portfolio, but maybe then you'll start.
Yeah, the cloud drives a lot of topics, right? So a few years ago, everybody was afraid of the cloud, especially on the analytics side, because they only did analytics on their most important data, and they would never put their most important data out in the cloud. And that's all been blown up, right? So people are starting to look at it just purely from the benefits they can get. We actually see a pretty fair split across people wanting to do on-premise and on the cloud, and at an organizational level, and it becomes down to a project-by-project thing, right? It's a no-brainer now that says if I'm sharing information with remote people in the field or partners or suppliers, I'm going to do it on the cloud. It's just like the answer, and it's question asked and answered, and people move on. When people are working with more traditional data warehouse methodologies, they oftentimes prefer on-premise stuff, right? And the wrinkle is you can't have a different analytic solution for each of those scenarios, right? So you want to have analytic capabilities available for people that can bridge across all of those fronts. So the hard answer when I go and talk to the engineering team is they say, hey, can we abandon IE now? Well, no, because a lot of people use IE. Can we abandon that on-premise stuff and just focus all the energy on the cloud? Well, no, because a lot of people like online working in Tableau Online, but a lot of people like to do on-premise things for a reason. Hey, the star schema stuff is past and everybody's doing key value stores. Can we abandon that? It's like, well, no, a lot of people do that. The ultimate answer is data's everywhere, and as an analytics provider, it's our job, right, everybody up here, to make sure we work with the data that they have, not the other way around, to force people to push their data around. And ultimately, yeah, a lot of people want to go to the cloud now, but it's not the exclusive answer yet.
Got you. Fred, anything?
Yeah, I mean, we've been at the cloud, I think, a little bit longer than most here. So I have some memory and recollection of the earlier years when it was anything but cloud in the analytics space. And that wasn't actually that long ago. I think the challenge for analytics, which makes it different, is the idea that everyone's just going to uproot their data and move it all to the cloud. I think that's probably not going to, maybe in 30, 40, 50 years, I don't know, maybe in some longer term horizon that's going to happen. But it's probably not going to happen while I'm still employed here. So the question is, how do you deal with the situation where there is data on-prem, and then there are applications like Salesforce that are in the cloud, and we're seeing an increasing number of cloud-based applications. And so we view it as kind of an imperative to be able to work in a hybrid world and not have one tool that works here and one tool that works there, but have the two actually work together in a very cohesive way that allows someone to tap into their data without moving it and leveraging it where it sits. And so we believe that there's some additional intelligence that's required to go do this. It's beyond just how we present the data, but it's also how we map and manage and model the data as well. We actually do believe that those are good things. And if you can do that, then you can provide conduits to getting data regardless of where it is. The cloud should be a fairly fuzzy boundary between on-prem and that public cloud. And we actually see a lot of larger customers that have even interim steps. They have private clouds and they have distributed locations, but they also have some stuff that's centralized. And so I do think you have to work with a blend of it.
Anybody else that want to add on this one, or I'll jump to the next question?
I think they've said it, but I think it's a multi-year journey, and it's moving. 9 months in at Salesforce, drank the cloud Kool-Aid from 18 years on-prem in BI and analytics. I think all of us have observed in the last 12 months that all of the 800-pound gorilla traditional vendors are cloud washing like nobody's business. So sorry, the marketer in the room, but I mean, Open World, SAP, I mean, all of them pivoted to the whole thing is cloud, cloud, cloud. Do I think that means it all goes to cloud? No, I completely agree with what they're saying. It's a multi-year path, and you have to be able to optimize for both.
So my last question to the forum before we're opening it to the audience is, there's a lot of people in the audience that come from ISVs, and they're building products today. Any recommendation that you have for them about how to use analytics inside their application, how to leverage your capabilities inside what they're building today?
So I'll start out. The embedded analytics space is really hot. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there. Again, I think historically a lot of the use cases were all driven on internal, whereas now it's about how do you get this insight out to the masses, whether it's the sales reps or whether it's to your suppliers, to your customers, et cetera. So there's a huge opportunity to go in that realm. And I think the key requirement there is that it's built on an open, flexible architecture. So the days of proprietary, one size fits all is really not the architecture of the future. It's about how do you build a platform that will not only scale, but is extensible, being able to incorporate in our world things like custom D3 visualization. So having that open API and having a platform that you can take not just one of us, but there could be use cases where 2 or 3 of us have to sit together based on the user requirements. So I think that's the key takeaway is openness and extensibility.
We see a good chunk of our business is embedded. And I think a lot of the embedded customers we deal with go in phases. So maybe first phase is the embedded reporting. Let me just list the rows in my database. And a lot of folks actually have an instinct that is analytics. And And what's interesting is what we found with a lot of customers is that that first foray where they put those initial very static reports where the customers can't really have much control over the data themselves out, we actually see in many customers the customer sat drop. Because at that point, customers actually realize, oh my gosh, here's what I could get, and I'm not actually getting this. And then these companies generally go through a phase where there's all this inundation with requests for the additional ways to slice and dice and vary. And, and a lot of the instinct is to think about things in terms of narrow slices of data or preconceived nuggets, because gosh, customers may not be ready to analyze or process all this information. But generally, a lot of the ones that get the most value out of it put as much self-service capability into their customers' hands as possible so that those customers, the more they can self-serve, the more that they can answer their own questions, the more they can do the 52 varieties of that report that you set up for them, yep. The happier they're going to be and the more flexible your solution is going to be.
Yeah. For the kind of the traditional world where there were the report factories, right? And you would go down and talk to some guy in IT and he'd create a report for you. If you're building an application for your customers, don't be that guy. Don't be the guy who says, oh, I know what they want, and I'm going to give them a report or a dashboard that shows them what they want. Because you might get one right. You're not going to get all the others right. And then the second bit of advice is don't be, anybody ever gone to one of the government websites where you can go to get census data or download traffic control data, and they say, oh, click here to download the data, and then they give you 50 rows. And then the next button, and the next 50 rows. Don't be that guy either. If you want to embrace analytics and supporting your customers, give them self-service. And self-service means give them access to the content that you want to give them in a programmatic way where they can pipe that into whatever solution they want. If you want to precede some dashboards, beautiful. If you want to precede some reports, beautiful. But don't be that guy who locks your data up thinking it's yours. Right? My advice is that data is your customers. Let them have that atomic level data, and they'll blow you away with the things that they can answer out of the data you give them.
Stephanie, anything you want to add on this?
No, it's good.
They did say it all, I will say. This is a great time. I mean, we do have a great panel here, and if there is any questions in the audience, please, there are 2 mics running around here.
Hi there, it's Linda Sharp, Religence again. I'm curious about what you think in terms of how long is it going to take for operational BI? You've talked about how long cloud's taken, and we all know that embedding is really hot right now. I would throw in process as another thing to consider. You know, that might smooth and further this along a bit, but how long for operational BI? And I don't mean back office. I mean front office, customer facing. All you guys are talking about capturing the engagement and tying all these things together. Well, how long? Thank you.
Excellent question. Somebody want to go first?
I'll share a quick story. I presented our solution to a CIO recently, and they loved what they saw. And at the end of it, he said, that's great, but I just want my daily report on my desk in PDF. I want to be able to sift through it and highlight and do it the way I've done it for the last 35 years. So I think how long, there's a shift in the market, and it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, so it's difficult to change behavior. So I think there's an evolution, and with a younger generation coming in, there's more of an aptitude to do this. So that's a big reality.
I think organizations are thinking about more progressively around incentive systems and how they incent their organization to use data. It used to be that if you use data the wrong way, you'd get punished. And operational BI, at least from our perspective, is how do you enable every remote decision that is possible based on facts to actually use facts so that you get better decisions as opposed to reporting on the bad ones that you made before. But to do that, you actually have to get a systemic use of information, and that means cooperation across an organization. That means the people that own data being incented to promote its use in an organization. So there's a lot of cultural change that I think that needs to happen to get the vision of where this can go. But the reality is the low-hanging fruit today, which is near term, I think is still really valuable, and we haven't knocked that down yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add from the Informatica perspective, we actually have an interesting view because we do see how much of the data is actually running in batch versus in real time, and how much of that is actually operational data. And we do see a very strong increase in the amount of real-time analytics and the amount of operational analytics. But I agree with everything that was said. There is a long way to go before it becomes the dominant analytics. But if anything we can say about change, the change is happening faster than ever before. Will you allow one more question? Yes, please.
So, question for you. I looked at this panel, and it's very interesting. Because traditionally, you had Hyperion, Cognos, and Business Objects as the big BI players, and you've displaced them, right? You're clearly the leaders. But Excel was always there. Everybody used Excel. They were never able to displace Excel. And I still see Excel out there in the market so much. What's the future?
So we see tons of Excel out there. It's a beautiful data source. Bring in a Tableau, and you can start analyzing it without fear of messing your formula up, without fear of forgetting that extra new row that came in below the range you defined. Excel's a fantastic spreadsheet. It's a crappy database.
Yep.
And you need different tools if you're going to do data analytics.
So the thing about Excel is, in Excel, the format of data and the presentation of data is tightly coupled with the data itself.
Yeah.
And part of what makes Excel very useful is that ease in which you can do both simultaneously. So there's always going to be this need to do both. And a lot of times when you optimize a tool for the ease of use of one use case, it becomes very difficult for it to do a different use case, which would be more complex. In fact, the Achilles heel of a lot of simple tools is the very thing that makes them simple in the first place. So I think what makes Excel great is that blending of form and function simultaneously. But when you want to scale it up and separate the presentation of data from the data itself, that's where something which is designed to make that do better, I think, is a different beast altogether.
So I think we'll finish with this question, but I do want to add one more thing. I do strongly recommend that after this session is over, there are a few booths out there. One of them is called Data Preparation Rev. I would say this is the future of how to remove Excel out of the equation. Give it a look. Sorry, I had to say it, but because I do really believe it's a great offering to move the Excel hell out of your table.
Yeah.
Sorry? Oh, it's on. Okay. So the other challenge or the other value that Excel has to the end user is that single user control. The blended point that you made is excellent, but it's that one user can take control of that data and have access to that data in a way that they determine. So it's really going to be the tools, as you guys have been talking about, how they give the individual user control. That's what's going to be the pivot point. When people realize that they can have that individual control without sacrificing the centralized data integrity, that's where the excitement begins.
Yeah, I think this is a good summary for us, and the hope to actually do replace some of the Excel hell is also a good way for us to end. I do want to say again, thank you very much, and hopefully you'll be able to stay toward the end of the event, and people probably will have more questions to you. Thank you very, very much.